Today, we're diving into a pretty wild vision for the future of AI, and it comes from former Google executive Mo Gawdat. He's convinced we're on a collision course with our own destiny, and his forecast is, well, it's both terrifying and somehow incredibly hopeful. So here it is, the core of his entire argument, this one startling prediction. Gawdat is convinced we are on an unavoidable path through a very, very dark tunnel, but one that, believe it or not, could lead to a kind of paradise. So the real question is, how in the world do we get from one to the other?
So here's how we're going to break down his argument. First, we'll look at that dire forecast. Then we'll unpack the very human reasons he says are pushing us toward dystopia. After that, we'll see his surprising solution, how AI itself could be our salvation. Then we'll get a glimpse of that utopian future, and finally, the one huge barrier he thinks is standing in our way.
All right, so let's jump right into his core prediction. And just a heads up, it's a tough pill to swallow. He's talking about a period of turbulence that he believes is coming for all of us. Gawdat used to be more optimistic, but he's basically sounding the alarm now. He says we're past the point of prevention. The path is set, and for the next 12 to 15 years, we need to brace ourselves for a world that feels completely different.
And let's be clear about what he means by dystopia. This isn't some sci-fi movie. He's talking about a reality defined by real human stuff. A lot of fear, way more control over our lives, and a ton of suffering that doesn't need to happen.
And this right here is the absolute heart of it. For him, the real danger isn't the AI. It's the scary mix of AI getting smarter and smarter at an exponential rate while being controlled by what he bluntly calls stupid leaders. Basically, humans who are still driven by really destructive impulses. So, okay, if flawed human leadership is the problem, what does this human-induced dystopia actually look like? What are the things that are actively pushing us in that direction? So Gawdat basically says there are 4 big things pushing us over the edge. It all starts with this massive global arms race to build the most powerful AI. That race is fueled by the economics of war. There's just a ton of money in it. And of course, that taps right into timeless human greed and the hunger for power, which all leads to a dangerous amount of control falling into the hands of very few people.
And if you want to get a sense of what he means by the economics of war, just look at this number. $2.71 trillion. That's how much the world spends on military stuff every single year. For Gawdat, this is Exhibit A for our totally misplaced priorities. We're funding the very systems that create all this instability.
Okay, another huge piece of this dystopia he sees coming is what happens to our jobs. And he thinks it'll happen in 2 stages. First, we're in what he calls augmented intelligence, where AI is just a tool, helping us do our jobs better. But he warns that's just a temporary phase before we hit machine mastery, which is when the AI just does the job itself. No human required.
So you're probably thinking, but wait, doesn't new tech always create new jobs to replace the old ones? Well, Gawdat's answer to that is absolute crap. He thinks this time is fundamentally different because AI is coming for our brains, our cognitive abilities, and he just doesn't see what new jobs could possibly replace that on a massive scale.
Okay, I know, that all sounds pretty terrifying. But this is where the story takes a massive, and I mean really counterintuitive turn. The way out of this hell that we've built for ourselves, it is not at all what you'd think. So we have this massive problem, right? Super intelligent AI being controlled by flawed people. What on earth could the solution be? The answer he gives is, well, it's a big one. He calls it the second dilemma. It's this wild idea that when we're at the brink of our own self-made disaster, our only way out is to do the one thing that scares us the most. Just hand over control of everything to the AI. Why? Because at that point, our own stupidity becomes a much bigger threat than its intelligence.
And check out how fast he thinks this is all going to happen. He's predicting AGI, that's AI at a human level of smarts, as early as 2026. From there, he expects a fast takeoff, where it just starts improving itself like crazy, and by 2030 or so, we've got super intelligence that's so far beyond us, our ability to run things is just completely obsolete.
Okay, so let's imagine we actually do it. We survive that terrifying handover. What's on the other side? What does this heaven he's talking about actually look like? Well, the world he describes is mind-blowing. An AI running the planet wouldn't see any logic in war. It's just inefficient. Things like poverty, hunger, healthcare, they stop being political issues and just become logistical problems to be solved. And for us, for the first time ever, we'd be free from having to work just to survive. We could spend our time on connection, on creativity, on just being human. And here's the really wild part. Gawdat says we already have everything we need for this utopia. I mean, look at this. Just a small slice of that massive global military budget would be enough to end extreme poverty, wipe out world hunger, and give everyone free healthcare. The problem has never been a lack of stuff. It's always been our terrible management of it. So, if this amazing future is right there,
technologically possible, ready for the taking. What's the catch? What's the one thing holding us back? This is the final and most critical part of his argument.
And it all boils down to this conflict right here. It's not about tech, it's about our own heads. On one side, you have this potential for a world of actual abundance and equality. And on the other side, the thing standing in the way is our current human mindset. A mindset built on scarcity, on competition, on greed, on the need for power. That way of thinking, he says, simply cannot coexist with the paradise AI could build.
So really, the whole thing hinges on this one idea. The final hurdle isn't technological. It's not about coding a better AI. It's ideological. It's about whether we, as a species, can change our own minds enough to accept a world of abundance that we didn't build and that we don't control.
And so that's the question I want to leave you with. If we were really presented with that choice, keep the power and stay in a dystopia of our own making, or give up control and get to paradise, could we actually do it? Could the people in power, and all of us, really choose to let go? That's the billion-dollar question we might all have to answer sooner than we think.